Hi everyone, this is Jen from Scrap and Passion, and I am here with an Artistic Studio Creation Design Team project. I shared this album last week, I think, and this album's made from one 8x8 stamperia paper pad. So I only had the 8x8 of the Passion collection, so I decided to go ahead and make this. I used the 12x12 on something else, so I've decided to pull in my Sir Vagabond collection. And I do have the 12x12 in this, but I'm only using the 8x8. And we got some 50 point, it's either 50 or 52 point chipboard in Crystal Store. I just have some black 65-pound cardstock, and then I chose purple for my accent color. It's kind of a bold choice, but I decided that I wanted to pull out the purple in his suit. And my other choice was orange, but there was not enough orange, in my opinion, to pull that bright color in. So the base of the album is going to be black. So I have my pages all cut, so we are good to go, and let's get started. I'm going to put my paper pad aside. In the meantime, I will fussy cut some of these images. Yeah, so let's get started. The first thing you need is 2 pieces of 4.5 by 7.5 chipboard and a 2 by 7.5 chipboard. And that is going to be the cover and spine of your album. This album, I'm going to use the stack the deck hinge, which is a cool hinge system that I don't use very often. For all the pages, I used 8.5 by 11, so we're going to go ahead and continue on with that. You can measure this out and cut it and all that. I'm going to go ahead and put it together and then cut it later, because you can do it either way, however you feel that day. So this paper does happen to be textured. This is an old Darreese. I have lots and lots of it because we used to have a place called Pac-Tans here in Ohio that went out of business, and now they are Michael's here. But every once in a while they'd have this Darreese brand on sale for a couple dollars, and I bought it when it was on sale, so I have lots and lots and lots of it in lots of different colors. Looking back on it now, hindsight being 2020, I probably did need to do that. Of course I use a lot of black and white, mostly black, some cream, but yeah, I probably didn't need all those colors. So I'm using my score tape, and I didn't say it to begin with, but if you're going to Crystal Store, please go to Crystal Store and get your paper crafting goodies. Go to Crystal Store and get your paper crafting goodies and use Scrapping Posh 10 for 10% off all your normal price purchases. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is make sure that my paper is lined up, and I'm going to use my scoreboard for that. And then I'm just going to put this side of my paper right up against the back, and that is going to ensure that it's pretty straight. Okay, so there is my now 8.5 by approximately, 20-inch long piece. Now the one thing you want to make sure is that your seam doesn't fall right on the edge. I think we're good. It doesn't, you don't want it to fall in the spine, you don't want it to fall on the edge. I could have gone with a 12 by and left myself a little bit more room up here. I do prefer about 1 inch instead of a 1/2 inch, but a 1/2 inch will definitely work. And then I'm going to try and use my art glitter glue here since I'm covering it up with pattern paper, if I get a little bit of, whoops, if I get a little bit of residual bubble, it's okay. Then if you put a piece of 1/4 inch score tape next to your cover, it's going to give you a good spacing for your spine. Cut that a little too long here. Okay, and then your spine, 2 inches. I'm just going to go ahead and use score tape on. I'm going to show you 3 different ways to attach chipboard here. Super simple, you guys. Have 1/4 inch. I usually keep 1/4 inch and 1/2 inch score tape handy. I do have some really big rolls, like a 5 and a 6 inch also, but for an album this size, I'm good with just using the smaller score tape. Oh, that's not coming off. Okay, now you put this right up against the spine and make sure that your spine is level. You can always use like a ruler to do your measuring if you'd like, but you definitely want it to be straight. Get your 1/4 inch score tape out again here. And then I'll do this one just a little bit different. I'm going to, of course you can cover the whole thing in score tape. It gets a little bit tedious for me to pull off all the little things because I'm impatient. I was watching Anna's channel. She's on the design team for ASC also, and it was really funny. She said that the least enjoyable part of making an album for her was the matting, when I thought it was funny because that's like the most enjoyable part for me. Like, I want to get all this construction out of the way so that I can make it pretty, like put the paper on. And I don't do a whole lot of embellishing and stuff like that, so it's not, I don't do that. So that's not my favorite part, obviously. Okay, I'm going to go now and do a diagonal with my ATG. Again, this is just another way that I adhere my covers. And basically the score tape on the outside is going to keep it down, and then the ATG on the inside just makes it so that it doesn't poof off of the paper. Okay, now that you have this done, let's go ahead and cut it here. I'm just going to use my cutter off to the side. I have a Cricut, oh no, yeah, a Caterpillar, which I think is Cricut, I don't know. But you just line it up at the top and cut it off. And we'll use this for other stuff. I'm going to take my corners and cut them diagonally, leaving about an 1/8 inch or so. I think that one I cut a little too short. Sometimes your corners just poke through. I've seen people do it different ways. This is just always the way I've done it. And, you know, I do it this way because when I watched Kathy Orta, she did it this way. I watched Kathy Orta probably in 2006, I want to say, is when I started making mini albums. And just like I hope you guys do, I watched a couple of her tutorials, I learned how to do it, and then from then on out, I just made my own. So, cool stuff. But, this 1/2" score tape is just the right size. Hope everybody is doing well today. This is going to be too big for that. I left a little bit more on the top than I did on the bottom. This is going to be a pretty quick project too. I think the biggest hurdle we're going to have is what paper to use where. Of course, I already cut my pages, so that will eliminate some time. Okay, now we're ready. Fold over, fold over. Let's go ahead and take this off because it's right up against the base. It's not folding over very well, but it'll give us a really good stick. And just use your desk. Use your desk to make that a nice straight crease. And then we'll do the bottom or top or whatever this ends up being. Fold that over. And same one more time. And there we go. There is your base. Super simple. This is going to be my front because the seam is on the back. Looks good to me. Now, you can either cover this with pattern paper or you can cover it with your solid, and I'm going to cover it with my solid. This is the piece, well, I guess this one fits pretty well. Well, this is the piece that I cut off the spine. This is a piece that I had left over from the pages. Now, I've learned that I'm not going to be able to just use this because I've learned that trying to put a piece all the way across there is just a little hard. So, what we're going to do is cut it. I'm going to do a piece over here. We're going to do about 4 inches, and then we'll span a 5" So this piece of paper happens to measure 7, 4 for one side, 4 for the other. I'm going to put that one up there. We'll make a tag or something out of it. And then 5 for the inside. So I'm just using this other piece of paper. 5 by 7. Okay, so we're going to glue all those down. You can use whatever gluing method you want. I'm just going to use ATG because it's quick. So far I'm keeping all my texture hidden. It's on the inside of the cover and it's going to be on the inside of this, but when we get to the pages we won't be able to hide it because one side's going to be textured and the other side won't. I prefer non-textured cardstock, but this is what I got. This is what I'm using. just getting my glue off. There we go. Line it up. And then on the center here, I am going to use score tape because this is what's going to hold the entire book together. Let's not chance that. However, this is too much. Let's keep it on the chipboard. And then the other sides, the sides over here, I'm just going to use ATG on because there's going to be paper over top of that holding it down. And I'll show you what I mean. Okay. Even though I have score tape on it, I'm going to go ahead and go around all the sides. With my ATG, and I do buy my ATG in bulk. Alright, I'm going to set this down right in the middle here, using hopefully these two to line up where I need to be vertically. And do not push it down yet because I'm going to push down in the center once I push that, or once I get it lined up, and find the two creases on either side of that spine, and I want to push down in them. You can use your finger, you can use the back of your bone folder if it's not sharp. You don't want to poke a hole. I've done before. You just want to give that definition so that when you close the album, that goes in and doesn't pop out. Alright. And voila. Album base. Go ahead and get our spine together, and again this is the stack the deck spine, and we want our pages to be about an inch smaller than the book itself, because you want a little bit of room at the top and bottom. So this is a 6 3/4 by 3, and I'm going to score at a 1/2 inch. This is actually a little shy of that, but it's okay. You cut yours at 6 3/4 by 3. I had a faux pas. I had a cutting faux pas. And then I have a 6 3/4 by 2.5. We're going to score it a 1/2 inch on both sides. And a 6 3/4 by 2. Scoring at a 1/2 inch on both sides. And a 6 3/4 by 1.5. And again, a 1/2 inch on both sides. That's going to give us 8 hinges to put pages in, or gussets. I think they're hinges. And a 1/4 inch between each page. Okay, so for this, I'm just going to use some craft glitter glue. I also like using Ultra Bond adhesive, but I'm out right now, so we're going to do craft glitter glue, and we're going to put this line this up right in the middle of this spine, both horizontally and vertically. You shouldn't have very much room on either side of the spine, just a tiny bit. Try and keep it straight because that is a good way to keep your pages straight. I have the measurements wrote on the back of each piece, and I also have them wrote on my pages, so I just have to be thoughtful to keep the measurements on the glued side or under the mats. So again, we want to try and line it up, keep it straight. Your 2-inch hinge. Got it scored at 1.5 on both sides. This is going to give us a 1/4 inch between each page, except for the middle page is going to have a 1/2 inch, which is cool. If you're going to put anything bulky in your books, you put it in the middle page. But I'm not going to put anything bulky in mine. Okay. Right here. Okay. There we go. There we go. Alright, there we go. Now our hinge system is done and we can go on to the pages. But before we do that, let's look at some paper. I made this dangle for my art glitter glue. If you guys are interested, I can do a video tutorial. I did a tutorial on a Facebook Live on the ASC Facebook group, so if you want to see things before they hit YouTube, check them out and look for my lives on Friday or Saturday nights at 7 Eastern. Okay, so let's cut into this paper and see what we've got. Now the stamperia pad is even more of a challenge than most because there are only 10 sheets of paper and several of those are cut aparts. You don't have to use them as cut aparts, but I always keep my wrappers to put paint in. Okay, so we have these labels, which will be fun. We have to figure out what's going to be our middle page because it's one that I'll show you. I kind of showcase the paper since I didn't have enough paper to do like a waterfall. I just put the best image. So the best image is going to go in the center for kind of like a fold out, center fold. So this is a contender, but I really think this is going to be it. So we also need a front page image, keeping that in mind. This is also a contender, but I fear that when I separate it, he's going to look like too big. Like the tutu kind of looks too big too. One of the cut apart pages. I did use some of these journaling tags to mat my pockets. This may be a contender for the front cover, but I like the maps too. Alright. Some nice images in here for backgrounds and just like plain pages too. Another page of cut aparts. And you can definitely use that as a page. You don't have to cut that apart, but I'll probably end up using this side because we have these cut aparts also that we could use. So I'm not going to cut apart things yet because I don't want to I'm going to cut those apart. Yeah. I don't want to use something that I can't. Okay, so this is how I feel. I think this is going to be my middle page, or this page. So I am going to put a sticky note on this. Middle page. And then a front and a back. I'm still leaning towards I think this one, because I don't care for this. And then the back I really don't care much about. So this could be like the front and the spine. I feel like he's been overused a little bit. And I like this one too. Maybe I'll use that one. But how much do I have to cut off? Not much. We can use this one. Let's use this one. Alright, that's going to be the back. Okay. Or the front, rather. And then I'm going to cut. I'm going to try and keep 2 inches here for the spine is what I'm going to try and do. I'm going to measure it first. We're at 2. Yeah, we're at 2, so we can do 2. And then you have your little label there too. It says Vintage Traveler. And then you get to pick whether or not you want to keep the mountains in, which I think I'm going to opt out. And then our page height is going to be the book is 7.5, so let's do 7 3/8. And the next thing we have to think is to distress or not to distress, and I think I'm not going to. So this is 4 3/4, and we know it's 7 3/8. So we're going to trim this piece down to 7 3/8, taking a tiny bit off the top and the bottom. So we end up losing a little bit, a tiny bit there and there. And then, yeah, that's going to go wood. And this is going to be a good one that you can use your metal embellishments on. So, double checking, because measure twice, cut once. So 4 3/4. So I'm going to cut this side off at 4 5/8. Okay. There we go. That looks good. And then I'm going to do score tape around the outside. And then I just need to find a back cover, which I'm not horribly worried about. Like, we could use this. We can use a matte paper. We can make this one. Let's use this one. I'm going to cut it at 4 5/8 by 7 3/8. Getting these bigger pieces out of the way is going to help us. And our back is here. Alright, that looks good. I'm going to go ahead and glue these down. Score tape on the outside and ATG on the inside will do us good to hold the covers on. Okay, so if you saw me mess up on this spine, you've seen that I grabbed the giant bottle of, or the bottle of Undo. Unfortunately, Crystal doesn't have this in her store, but they do sell it on Amazon. I have an Amazon link below, and it goes, it works super well. I would have had to trash this piece of paper at least, but instead I just sprinkle some Undo on it. I let it sit, soak in. I missed a spot, so I put a little bit more on there. I pulled it up and then re-stuck it down using the same tape. So check out Undo if you have it. I actually have a like liter size bottle of that I refill, so I'll link those below. Again, it's an Amazon affiliate link, and it costs nothing extra to you, but it gives me just a little tiny bit of change. So let's go on to our pages. Question is, do we start from the back or the front? Let's look at our book that we're kind of mimicking. You can see the front and back are plain, again, because we don't have a whole lot of paper to play with. So since those are the next biggest pieces, let's go ahead and put those on. They should be the same as the front, just a little bit shorter. We're going to go 5.5 by 7 and 3. Let's see here. 5.5 by 7 3/8. Or I'm sorry, it's 4.5 by 7 3/8. 4.5 by 7 3/8. So paper for the front and back. Obviously, it's not going to be this piece. I do like the compasses, and they don't have a frame around it like the rest of them do. So, but this guy, no, we'll leave him out. I think I'm going to cut those up. And this is our middle page. So let's do, I'm going to do the compasses for the front, and I think this for the back. Just checking, fits good. Okay. And you can see how that covered up where we put our paper that was just a tiny bit too short. All good. Now I'm going to switch to strictly ATG tape because this is the inside of the album. We should have no issues, especially since there's no pockets or anything on these. So I think I want it this way, maybe a little bit upside down, but this is the way that I like it. And this is probably, do blue page. This would be really nice if it was, if I distressed it, but I still have the Lady Vagabond and the 12 by 12 of the Sir Vagabond. So I'll distress the bigger album. This is just kind of like a challenge, and for people who don't want to buy multiple paper packs, because paper packs go a long way. My tendency is to use as much paper as possible because I have a lot of it. But I have issues buying a lot of paper also. So my page 1 here is 3 by 6 3/4 and 2.5 by 7 3/4. And then we're going to make a pocket, a small pocket. And this is a good way to use some of the, I'm going to score 1/2 inch on the 7 3/4 inch piece. This is a good way to use some of the smaller pieces. So when you're dealing with a limited amount of paper, do all your pages first and then start with the biggest to mat and go to the smallest. So we are going to do all the pages before we cut any paper, so know that. For my pockets, I like using glue on the sides, and you just butt it up against one of the long sides. Remember, if you are like me and write your measurements on your paper, make sure that they're on the inside. I'm just going to have to make sure that I mat over everything that I don't get cut. And then, I don't think, yeah, I kept all my corners very square in that book, so I'm going to do the same. Now, this is a pocket. You can put it over the hinge if you have enough room. I didn't cut my hinges diagonally, so I don't have enough room to do that. I would have to cut my hinges diagonally to make that happen. So instead, I'm going to glue the bottom part and then just glue this right onto the outside of that hinge. So probably been easier to glue the bottom part before I folded it, but whatever. You can definitely slide that on the hinge if you wanted to. Okay, now make sure that you get it all the way to the top of the hinge, and take your pocket. I'm not too horribly worried about not having the entire hinge down because whoops, we're going to put paper over it. You want to give yourself about 1/16 of an inch from the very edge of the hinge there. Okay, so that's what it looks like on the back. You have your hinge sticking out, and on the front it's there, but we're going to mat this so it doesn't matter. Okay, let's look at the reference book, my passion book. So now we're going to do a large page. Most of the pages are 4 inches wide. This one happens to be 3 inches, but this one's going to be, almost all of them are going to be 4 inches wide, and then this one has a tall pocket. I think it's 5 inches, nope, 4 inches. So this one is a 4-inch page with a 4-inch pocket. Now the cool thing about using the Stack the Deck hinge is that you don't have to score every single page. Now you don't have pockets on the side of every single page either, but that's okay with me. So let me see if I can put a piece of paper under here to make it easier for you guys to see. I tried the white. I thought black would be hard for you guys to see, and I'm always using black. So I tried doing white on some album I did. Oh, the Winter Roses album, which came out beautiful. I'm glad I used that color, but it was very hard for you guys to see what I was doing the entire time. So you just glue that straight down onto the hinge, and then you take a piece of 5 by 4 1/4 and score it at a 1/2 inch on both 5-inch sides. So there's your 5, score it at 1/2 and 4 1/2. Fold, fold. I'm going to reinforce these little folds here. And then bottom. And on the sides of the pockets. And then you just line it up with the outer corner, and you should have plenty of room. Now when we mat this, we'll actually mat it down inside so that things are easy to come in and out of. Okay, so on the back of this page, let's see if we're going to do anything. We're making these the same. It has a small pocket, a very small pocket, and then a flap. And then these little things keep that shut. We're not making the mats now though. So for the pocket, I have a 2 by 5 and a 3.5 by 5 for the swing. Now the 2 by 5 can be any width you want. It was the width that I had from the scraps. So the 2 by 5, again, we're going to score at a 1/2 inch on both sides because that's going to be a pocket. And the 3.5 by 5, we're going to score just on one side at a 1/2 inch on the 5 inch side. Okay. So, this is going to be our flap. It just sits at the top of the page, and this is going to be our pocket. Reinforce the creases, the scores, the bends, the folds, whatever you want to call them. And then it's just double checking my measurements. Both gussets and the bottom, and line it up with the outside of the page. And then the same with this one, line it up with the top of the page. You can put it basically wherever you want on the top of the page. I'm going to center mine. It's going to go right in the center. Okay. So there is page 1 and 2 complete. Gel pen is kind of sticky that I use to write the measurements on. Okay, so we have all these flips and flaps and stuff going on over here. So this page we're just going to keep blank. Page 3, at least on this side. Line that up again, just giving just a little bit of room, a 1/16 of an inch on the hinge side, and we're just going to leave that one plain. And this side we're just going to put a couple flaps on it. So I have 2 pieces cut at 3.5 by 4, and I'm going to score at a 1/2 inch on both and the 4-inch side. Just one score. I'm going to end up with a flap that's 3.5 by 3.5. If you want it smaller, you can make it smaller. If you want it to fit journaling cards, you can do that also. So, fold those. Reinforce the bends. And we're going to put one here and one here, I think. And then we're going to make them pockets. So that ought to be fun. We're going to go ahead and glue them on, and then we will make the pockets. So we're going to glue one to the lower left-hand side of the page. Put this in here so you guys can see it. Not quite all the way to the bottom. And this is going to go here, and again, give yourself at least a 1/16 of an inch so that your pages won't have problems opening and closing. And then for the pockets, since they're so small, I have a piece cut at 1 3/4 by 4.5, and we have 2 of them. You don't have to add the pockets if you don't want, but when we get down when we get down to matting these, we're going to have some smaller strips that it'll be easier. Whoops. It'll be easier to mat some smaller spaces with the strips that we have left versus the entire, you know, two sides of that entire 3.5 by 3.5 space. Alrighty. And we're going to glue both sides and then the bottom so that it's a pocket. You could also make this a tiny belly band, that would work too. Line up with the outside of the pocket. And there's one. And do the same with this one. Lining up with that outside of the pocket. Alright, so there's our two flaps and our third page is done. Let's look at the fourth page and what we're going to do. So the fourth page has, looks like I cut this one a little shorter and it accommodated these journaling cards. So I want to do that again. So this one's going to be 6 3/4. We're going to cut it at 6 3/4 by 3 7/8. So this is 6 3/4 by 4. I'm going to cut off an 1/8 inch. And then we're going to glue it again like we have been. So we just did 6 3/4 by 3 7/8, and that's just going to give me a little bit of wiggle room as far as putting those journaling cards on. Now since I cut an 1/8 inch off of those, I'm going to have to cut an 1/8 inch off of my pocket. So I'm going to cut the 1/8 inch off. So this one's going to be 3 7/8 by 2, I'm sorry, this one's going to be 4 7/8 by 2 1/4. And this one's going to be 4 7/8 by 2 1/2. Now I have to score these at a 1/2 inch on both sides because they're pockets. But what I'm going to do is instead of doing the 1/8 inch measurement, I'm just going to score it at 1/2 on one side, flip it over, score it at 1/2 on another. That's going to give me my correct measurement so that I don't have to deal with the fractional. Well, I have to deal with fractions, but I don't have to deal with the 1/8 inch measurements. Just the 1/2 inch measurements. Okay, so the 4 7/8 by 2 3/4 is going to be the bottom pocket, and it's just going to go like all the other pockets. We're going to put glue on the sides and the bottom, line it up with the outside corner. And that is going to be our bottom pocket. Now this one's going to be fun because what we want to do is we're going to slide this down into that pocket so that we don't have a lot of bulk. So I'm just going to turn it over after I bend my gussets or hinges or whatever you want to call them. And I'm going to cut about 45 degrees off. We want them to be pretty equal, but they don't have to be exact, and then that's going to slip right down inside there. Okay, so, and then if you want a short pocket, glue the bottom. If you want a longer pocket, leave the bottom open and it'll go all the way down in there. Wiggle, line up with the outside. And now you have a double pocket. I'm going to show you how this works if I can find a piece of paper. This is a very long piece of paper. So there's your first pocket, and there's your second pocket. You can see that this piece of paper goes all the way down. So there is your page 4. And then this is the middle page, so we are going to leave this one blank. And I'm just going to put another 4 by 6 3/4 here. And this is where our middle image is going to go. I haven't decided whether we're going to use the colored version of the city or the brown. It probably depends on what it looks like. Okay, so on the back of the middle page, we're going to put a belly band. So I just cut one at 1 3/4, which you can make it any size you want. This is a scrap that I had. So it's 1 3/4 by 7 3/4. We're going to score at a 1/2 inch on both sides. And put our belly band on. This is a super fast album, you guys, especially if you've already made one. I already made one, so it's even faster for me. Don't get discouraged if it takes you a little bit longer than me. I've already made one. And I will tell you, the more mini albums you make, the faster you get. And I've been making mini albums for a while. Okay, now the next page, this is going to be page 5, and I am telling you, this white gel pen is sticky. You could use it as glue. So the base page is again 6 3/4 by 4. I think I do well when I put this piece underneath it there. Oh, okay. I don't think I was supposed to do that. It's okay. Yeah, no, it's fine. So this is 6 3/4 by 4, and then I'm going to use another 6 3/4 by 4 and make a flap for this. So I'm going to take a 1/2 inch. Or I'm going to score it a 1/2 inch, which is going to make this 3 inches. And then use a punch, and we're just going to make a fun end. And you can use punches, you can use dies. I prefer punches because they take less time. And I use the doily punch, the Martha Stewart doily punch. The passion one, but this one, if I had a gears punch, I would use it. Oh, I didn't line that up very well. That's okay. I got some oblong holes. Okay, good enough. So this is just going to be a flap on top of that. And then I'm going to put a fun flap on top of this. So it's going to look like more than one page. My fold is not straight, so this page is going to be crooked, but yeah, that happens. So we're just going to line this up on the very edge, leaving about a 1/16 of an inch. Okay, so there's a flap that is attached to the page. There's the page, there's the flap, and then I'm going to use this one, and this is going to be a flip on the flap. So we're going to, this one measures 3 1/4 by 4. And I'm going to score at a 1/2 inch. And this is going to be perfect for one of those journaling cards. the perfect size for a journaling card. And I'll show you in my other book here. And I'm just going to lay this right on top of this. And wherever you want it, and put it in the center about. I'll show you in this book. And here's the belly band on this side, and then here's your flap, your flip, your flap, and then your actual page. And your actual page is a pocket. Okay, it's going to be a diagonal pocket. So, I'm not sure. I have 2 pockets on the first page. I think I'm just going to put 1 pocket. So I'm going to do a 7 3/4 by 2 inch strip. And again, this is just the size that I have. You can make it any width that you want, whatever comes off of your paper. So I scored at a 1/2 inch on both sides. So this is going to be a really long horizontal pocket. Funny story, while I'm gluing this down, you glue the sides and then the back. There's a log out in my backyard that I see through my window that's right in front of me, and it looks like a llama. So every time I look out there, it makes me laugh because it looks like a llama. Okay, and there is our horizontal. I guess it's a vertical pocket. Here's our vertical pocket page here. So that page had quite a bit going on with it. And then the back of the page I'm leaving plain. So you can always mix this up, and you could have put this flap here or this one here. It doesn't matter. It may be 1 page short, which is fine. Oops. So this is page 7. Okay. Page 7 is a short page. That's why. That's why I don't have enough, because I don't need it. Okay, so page 7 again is going to be only a 6 3/4 by 3. So after it's a page, it's going to be 6 3/4 by 2.5. And then we're going to put a flap on it also, and this one's going to be 3 1/8 by 4 1/2, and score it a 1/2 inch on one side. And you can make this whatever size you had left over. It doesn't have to be the same exact size. But this smaller one, I'm going to go ahead and punch again, just so there's more than one element punched. I want to kind of bring it together. I'm not big on doing a whole lot of fancy stuff, but I do like an accent here and there, as long as it's fast and easy. Okay, so, oh, you know what I did? I did not need to score this. So I'm going to end up with an extra page is what I'm going to end up with, which is fine. Let's do that. So we're going to make this a flap instead, just like we did before. This is going to be a flip on the flap. And then I'm going to go ahead and cut this piece that measures 3 inches down to 6 3/4. So impromptu, a 3 by 6 3/4 inch page, which essentially was the same size that we were going to have anyways. Alright, here we go. So this one I used a really cool image on. So one of these pages is going to have a cool image on, maybe Mr. Vagabond himself. It's going to go right here. Giving yourself, remember, just give yourself a little bit of room between your spine and your page, like a 1/16 of an inch. And then this flash is going to go here. If you want, you can put it here if you think that there's too much built up on this, but I like it this way. These flips and flaps are interchangeable wherever you want to put them. Okay. So there is that page, flap, flip, flap. And then on the opposite side of this, I have another small horizontal pocket again because of the strips of paper that I have left are going to lend to having short, excuse me, shorter pockets. So this one is 7 3/4 by 1.5. Scored on a half inch on each side. And you want to put the glue on both tabs and the bottom or side, however you look at it. One more page left, you guys. Super simple, quick album. And then I'll show you how I managed to fill this with just an 8x8 paper pad. Alrighty. Now for the base page on the back, it's still a 6 3/4 by 4. I will tell you that the Stack the Deck hinge system is way more forgiving than the hidden hinge system. I have a little 1x5 strip. We're going to make this one another, is that straight? I have to measure. We're going to make this another, yeah, this is not straight, so I'm going to cut another one. We're going to make this another belly band. So I'm going to go ahead and make it 1.5 since I'm recutting it anyways. 1.5 by 5. And we're going to score at a 1/2 inch on both sides. I'm putting another flap on the back, so we'll go ahead and score that too. Score at a 1/2 inch on both sides, the 5-inch side. And then the very last thing we're going to do is a 6 3/4 by 3, scored at 2.5, just to add some extra interest to the album. Okay, so we're going to put our belly band on. And we're going to put it right in the middle. And then we're just going to flip this over. And this is going to be the flap on the back. Now, if you do not need instructions on how to use only an 8x8 pad, and you feel confident yourself, or maybe you have more paper to use and you just like the style of this album, I will see you next time. So head on over to ASC Supplies on Etsy, asccraftsupplies.com. Use Scrapping Posh 10 for 10% off your normally priced purchases. If you want to see me go ahead and mat this album with just using one 8x8 stamperia pad, then stay tuned and we'll see you then.